Well, all right, you guys. Why? Here's the question of the evening. Why does everything feel spiritually broken right now? I just want to start off tonight's show by saying the world may be confused, but Christ is not. Something is definitely off in the world. And I don't just mean politically or culturally, I mean spiritually. Something has happened. That is for sure. It's undeniable now. We feel like we're walking around in the fog trying to figure out what it is and why we feel this way. And you basically hear every commentator right now talking about it. You turn on the news, war in one corner, election drama in another. You open social media, and you don't know if what you're looking at is real or AI generated. You hear politicians talking about God, and none of it even makes sense or is biblical. And you begin to lose more trust in everything and everyone every minute. We're even watching world leaders clash with religious leaders. And we're wondering all the while, who really has authority today? Now, that is a deep dive. And underneath all of it, there's this low hum, this anxiety that just doesn't seem to go away no matter how much we pray, how much we scroll, how much we consume. It's like we're all just standing in the middle of a crowded room and everyone is screaming different things at the top of their lungs, and no one is saying the truth. Yep, everything does indeed feel unstable right now, economically and politically, yes. But the big one is spiritually. And it's because that is the actual crisis. Whether we want to admit it or not, the economy crisis, the polarized politics, the wars, these are all symptoms of being spiritually sick. We are living through a total collapse of shared truth, objective truth. And when truth collapses, everything else, you guys, is sure to follow. Mark my words on that. And yes, that is biblical. So today we're going to look at some of what's been happening from a bird's eye view. Politics becoming a type of religion, AI rewriting reality, fear flooding every screen possible, to name a few. And we're going to ask, as Catholics, as Christians, as people who believe in a God who does not change, what do we do with all of this being thrown at us at rapid fire speed? But before we do get into it, I do want to take a quick moment and thank you all for your love and support of this new ministry. It shows. And by the way, if you would like to support us, there's multiple ways to do so. You can go to surrenderedlife.com and click on Meisha's ministry and subscribe. We're going to start to do a whole bunch of fun stuff there. And you can also donate if that is your calling. And if there's a lighter way you would like to support us, please hit that small bell button here on YouTube so you're notified whenever we go live. And also hit the like and subscribe button. And please share these videos as well. If you enjoy them, if you get something out of them, please do share them. It really does help the ministry and the channel to grow. And the more we grow, the more we can do to help. So again, thank you so much for all of your love and support thus far. We see it, we feel it, and it is showing. We are growing. So thank you. All right. So let's get into it. Our very first story tonight, you've probably seen some versions of this going around. A politician invokes God and a crowd cheers. Someone calls it prophetic. Someone else calls it blasphemous. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, there is a Christian battling between, is my faith informing my politics, or has my politics replaced my faith? Because those are two very different things, and it can happen before we even realize it, especially when we have leaders of the world, one political, one on the religious side of the aisle, coming after each other on the main stage, on mainstream media, on all the networks. And with that happening, it is no wonder that so much spiritual confusion, us asking ourselves, who really has authority here? is all starting to set in. So these first two clips show a glimpse of what we've been seeing as of late. So I want to play these two clips and we'll chat afterwards. Take a look.
We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo.
What did you think? He said that you were terrified about foreign policy, that fear of the Trump administration.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. And that's what I believe I am called to do, what the church is called to do. We're not politicians. We're not looking to make foreign policy, as he calls it, with the same perspective that he might understand it. But I do believe that the message of the gospel, blessed are the peacemakers, is a message that the world needs to hear today.
Lots of people weighing in on this on every corner of the globe, because when you have the president of the United States speaking against who the world views as the current pope of the largest religious institution on the face of the planet, the Vatican, the Catholic Church, you're going to raise a lot of havoc. And it certainly has. And it's still playing out. But it's not just President Trump and Pope Leo. In fact, many political voices have weighed in on this issue, putting their voices in the ring of what they think, politician versus religion, in a way. Take a listen to this.
What is your relationship with God? Because you see so much evil, and you quite literally battle some of the darkest evil that can exist in humanity on a day-to-day basis. And not only that, you see it. Most people don't see it. You see it.
No, I do. And look, I honestly, God is my witness. Every night I go to bed, I pray for the safety of the men and women of ICE and the Border Patrol, but I also pray for the people we're looking for and the people we're saving. Even the people that we go to the streets to look for, illegal aliens. I want them to be sent home. I'm in the export business and I love it. But I don't want to see anybody die. So I pray for everybody every night. But right now, I'm in a little trouble with I'm a Catholic. I'm in a little trouble right now because I called out the Pope. And because they want to weigh in, and him and 3 cardinals weighed in the other day about how cruel ICE is and how we shouldn't have shut the border down. Well, as a lifelong Catholic, baptized, First Communion, Confirmation, I love the Catholic Church. But you know what? They're wrong. Secure border saves lives. And get this. If you go to the Vatican and jump their wall, the penalty is about 3 times it is here. But we're not allowed to secure our border. Then they want to attack the men and women of ICE. Because they're listening to the fake stories, right? I've been up on Capitol Hill. We stopped about 2 weeks ago because I got sick of going up and the president got tired of negotiating on reopening DHS. And, you guys need to stay out of sensitive locations. Churches, schools, hospitals. I said, first of all, we do. But there is no sanctuary for a national security threat or significant public safety threat. There is no sanctuary here. And we'll go where we got to go. I said, but name one instance, please. Name one instant where we went into a church to arrest somebody. Give me one. Give me one we went into an elementary school to arrest a child. Give me one. Give me one time we went to a hospital to arrest somebody. This is a false media. This is the media lying to the American people trying to vilify ICE. The only people that violated the sanctity of the church was Don Lemon and his group. They're the only ones who violated the church. And that's why there's so much rhetoric, and that's why the American people don't understand what ICE really does, because there's so much false information. And I made a challenge. Give me one case we arrested somebody in the church or hospital. So there is fear in the immigrant community. Most of that fear is being driven by the left that want to vilify the men and women of ICE.
Big, big, big topic right now. We're not going to so much split hairs on all of what Tom Homan said. I, for one, actually like him. I think that he comes off is very honest, just coming from the worldview that he has seen. But my point in showing both of those clips, President Trump and Pope Leo, they've been going back and forth a lot as of late. And we've also got other political leaders such as Tom Homan weighing in about, you can see the lines kind of being blurred here between authority. And what I want us to think about is when any political figure becomes any political figure, okay? So go beyond just the scope of the actual issue they were talking about, because Tom Homan is actually correct in a lot of what he says. But I want you to go beyond the political talking point, and I want you to think of a bigger, broader issue that when any type of political figure, or it could be a Hollywood figure or a music mogul, I don't care. When anyone becomes any type of quote unquote object of hope and not simply vehicles for secular policy, when this happens, what ends up happening is we have as a culture began to cross a line, to blur a line between real hope and where that is found and truth. And that line is blurred between man made hope and truth. And we see this so often today that many people feel like politics is becoming a form of religion in a way. And what we don't want to let happen in our minds is to allow any person this side of heaven to end up standing in the place of our Savior. So, see, we're taking this from a much bigger level than individual political talking points because they deserve a place on the stage. They have to, and we have to talk about them. But we can never start to blur the lines between real authority, real hope, and real truth. No human being, no political issue can ever take the place of our Savior. This is not a left or right critique either, because again, this is at the very center a spiritual issue. We are looking at all the things that we are blasted with on a daily basis, whether it be on the news or on social media. We're taking all that's coming at us, okay? And we can filter, we can peck around on the ground and talk about individual issues, but the big issue is, where are we placing our hope and our trust? Where are we finding real truth? When we watch these tensions heat up between, say, the Trump administration and the Pope, for example, which is the most recent version of this, what we're actually watching is a political identity swallow religious identity whole in this country. It's again a blurring of lines of politics and of faith, and only one of those is eternal and has an eternal consequence. I want you to remember something that St. Augustine said, okay? One of the greatest saints ever. He said, quote, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in God." It's too good for me not to say again. St. Augustine, famous for this quote, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in God." In other words, the restlessness that we feel in life does not go away because of a certain life choice we make. It doesn't matter if we pick a political tribe to belong to, what cause we're fighting for, doesn't matter what color jersey we are wearing. When our politics or anything else in life become our religion, when that's where we find our peace and joy, when those lines get heavily blurred, we only become increasingly more restless, because it is true, as St. Augustine said, our hearts are restless until they rest in God. Politics has always, from the beginning of time, politics has always made a terrible God with a small g. And the moment we start expecting salvation from Washington, D.C., or any other capital city or any political leader, we have already completely lost the plot. From the beginning, the church has walked alongside powerful empires and watched them all fall. The church is not surprised by any of what we are seeing. But if we are not careful, if we let the warring of words confuse us of what this truly is and what truly matters, then we will be the ones who ultimately remain restless, unfulfilled, confused, and never happy. We are absolutely restless in life until we truly find our rest in God. And the only way we can find our rest in God is if we are doing His will. And by the way, it is not simply politicians blurring the lines between politics and religion. As you know well, AI, the beast, is doing the very same thing by design. AI, in fact, is blurring the lines between many layers of reality in general. And one of the things that we are having to contend with right now is how AI is creating these deep fake videos galore. Audio voices being cloned, videos of Hollywood actors and politicians are surfacing that aren't even real but look real. Same exact thing, by the way, with news clips. And again, we're being told that it's all about advanced intelligence, but really it's only leading to more confusion and restlessness of the soul. That's what it's doing, because it's creating a division between, if we allow it, between us and our faith and knowing what is real, what is actual truth. So what I want to do now is take a look at a few examples of what we're seeing with AI. I mean, there are just a couple few examples. You may have seen them floating around, and then let's discuss. So take a look at this one first.
In a stunning development, Canada has declared war on the United States. Let's go to Joe Braxton, who is live at the border.
I'm currently at the border, but there is no war. Mom, Dad, I know this looks kind of real, but it's all AI.
Grandpa, I'm fine. This is just AI. You don't need to wire money to anyone. I am not in love with you. And I do not need your money for a plane ticket. I am AI.
This fake moon landing footage isn't classified. It's AI.
You're probably wondering how I got rich with crypto. The truth is, I didn't get rich off crypto. I don't even exist.
You might be able to tell this is fake now, but it's gonna keep getting better.
We're all AI.
There could be aliens, but I'm not one of them. I'm AI.
An herbal supplement did not cure my cancer. I'm not even real.
Uncle Fred, the government has not been taken over by lizard people.
You don't need to send us $5,000 in gift cards because you missed jury duty.
Grandma, it's not real. It's AI.
It's AI.
It's AI.
Bro, it's AI.
Fake faces.
Real consequences.
Think before you trust.
Yeah, we better take a look at this one also.
Voice cloning technology is becoming alarmingly good.
I stand before you not as an expert, but as a concerned citizen.
One of the 400,000 people who marched in the streets of New York on Sunday,
and the billions of others around the world who want to solve our climate crisis.
As an actor, I pretend for a living. I play fictitious characters, often solving fictitious problems.
I believe that mankind has looked at climate change in that same way.
Nailed it.
As if it were fiction.
As if pretending that climate change wasn't real would somehow make it go away. But I think we all know better than that now.
Yeah, it's getting wild. And this is a demo from 11 Labs, which is the best voice synthesizer on the planet. You can go clone your voice today. I made a video on how to do that. I also made a video on...
Yeah, no thanks. We don't want to do that. We're not going to go clone our voice today. One more here. Take a look at, this is just like a little viral one that was going around recently. It is all AI. I look at some of that stuff and I literally can't believe it because it is getting so good. If you heard some of those voices, or if you heard your favorite politician or Hollywood actor talking, you would never know they are getting so good. And the problem is we can look at some funny ones like that are just obviously telling you it's AI. But the problem is deepfakes are everywhere all over the internet and barely anyone can tell the difference. Well, let me give you some spiritual framework for the few clips that we just watched, because the technical explanation of AI isn't the important part, nor is it for today's show. Let's rather go a little deeper on the spiritual side. Okay. I'm going to take you into the Old Testament for a moment. Do you remember the Tower of Babel? A civilization so proud of its own capabilities, its own genius ideas, that it decided it was so great that it could build its way to heaven, that it could manufacture transcendence. And what did God do? Little Bible quiz for you. You remember? What did God do? He looked at all that and he shut it down. Why? Because that road that's riddled with only self and pride only ends in more confusion and destruction. And so think about it. What are we doing today with AI blurring the lines between what is true and what isn't? A current civilization so proud of its own manufactured capabilities that it's decided to build its own type of truth as well as imitate humanity. What we're doing, so stay with me here, what we're doing is building our own new type of Babel. We are creating systems that are imitating human thought, human creativity, human types in general, and we're calling it progress. But man and machine-made imitation is not truth. A deep fake is not a real person, not a real event, not a real anything. A manufactured language model is not real wisdom. And a society struggling to distinguish between the real and the manufactured ends up not only handing over its real discernment to a man-made piece of tin, a machine, a robot, but it also starts to buy into the lie of the devil that man can be like God. Man can create like God. And what's scary is that this is not a future problem. This is a right now problem. And let's clear something else up really quick. Technology can imitate intelligence, but it cannot and will never imitate wisdom. It cannot imitate conscience. It cannot imitate the soul, no matter how much it tries. The transhumanist vision, the idea that we can upgrade ourselves and by the way, upgrade ourselves right out of our limitations that are set by God. That's transhumanist vision and thought. That we can literally upgrade ourselves out of our own limitations set by God. That we can essentially engineer our way right past death, right past suffering and meaning even. And it is the oldest lie in the book. It's the same one whispered in the Garden of Eden when the serpent said, "You shall be like gods." And we know full well how that story ends when we try to be like God. The Catholic answer remains the same, always will, that we are made in the image of God and we do not need to become something else. We are enough just as He created us. Yes, we are called to grow in holiness, but we are not called to become transhumanist machines. We are not called to become like gods. No, that's pagan. We are not called to become like our God, the creator. We are called to grow in holiness, to work against our three enemies, the world, the flesh, and the devil. The problem isn't that AI tools are being built. The problem is that we've stopped asking whether we should be doing this. And we started to assume that whatever we can do, we should do. And that is not progress. That is pride with a massive marketing budget. And we need to start asking questions about how this all is going to affect real people and their soul. Sadly, though, it's not just AI manufacturing false realities and weaponizing truth. Our own media has been in that business for a very long time. I know this very well. And the confusion it generates is very real. And that is a spiritual problem also. Political and religious figures warring with one another and AI creating alternate realities is confusing. But in addition to confusion, we are also being pressed into a constant state of feelings of emergency, again, by design. Every day now, there seems to be a new existential threat. Every month, a new conflict that's becoming the next big thing, the next biggest rumor. World War III is talked about continuously. Every news cycle ends with a very implicit message for us. We need you to be more afraid. It's true. They need us to be more afraid. And just like with confusion, fear, and anxiety, when it becomes chronic, it affects the soul and it affects the choices we make. So, what I want us to do now is take a look at a couple clips to remind us of what we hear on a daily basis. And then we are going to chat. Take a look at this first.
Will be dropping everywhere. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.
So we see something of that nature constantly, and we have other big empires now starting to weigh into the fray. I want you to hear what China recently said. Of course, this is a dubbing over of his voice because they speak in another language. So this will be in an English translation. But we have other large empires starting to weigh in that is causing much of our soul maybe to feel anxious. Take a listen.
First of all, I want to tell the Israeli government and the Israeli leaders that the moment Israel uses a nuclear warhead against any other country, including against Iran, it will be the demise of Israel as a country, as a state. Why? Because by dropping a nuclear warhead against another country, Israel will become the public enemy number one of mankind. Because mankind will never support Israel to use nuclear warhead against another country, killing hundreds of thousands, if not more, people, and they will really ignite huge condemnation among other countries against the government of a regime in Israel and causing the demise of Israel as a regime, as a country.
Well, when we start hearing things like this, it's no wonder that people start to get scared. Are we headed towards, like I said, World War III? We hear it almost on every corner. We see big empire countries starting to rise up and pick sides, and we hear this constantly. When you hear things like that, I've got a question for you. Do you feel scared? Honestly answer that in your mind. Because Jesus said very plainly in Matthew chapter 24, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see that you are not alarmed. And then he gives the reason. Because these things must take place, but the end is not yet. We are being given a diagnostic tool for exactly this moment. We will hear rumors of wars, yes, but we are not to be alarmed. remember, do not lose sight of this. We are in a spiritual battle here below, and these evil entities use both man and man-made institutions to cause division, fear, and hatred. The media is definitely one of those institutions. It is a conduit that can be used by people to make us feel fear. And some of that is because of genuine malice, but some of it is simply just about the plain good old dollar bill, about money and power. Sensationalism sells tickets, but that constant state of alarm and emergency, whether talking about wars, new outbreak diseases, which again is now on every major news channel, or whatever the new scary thing is for us, constantly buying into it and becoming fearful is not faith. Fear is the opposite of faith, actually. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I am not an advocate for being ignorant to what is going on in the world. We must know what's happening and keep our head on a swivel. It's actually a part of our Christian duty to care about what's happening around us in the world. But there is a difference between informed, prayerful engagement, little, slowly, versus a consuming of fear en masse, doom scrolling all day on a loop and calling it being informed. That is very harmful to the soul. Always remember that fear keeps people consuming and obeying. Fear keeps people consuming and obeying. And by the way, the top at the top, they know this. Anxious people don't turn the TV off. And an audience that cannot look away is an audience that can be sold anything. What we need most is not more news. No, what we need most is peace. Not the peace the world gives, because the world doesn't give any peace, clearly. Rather, we need the peace that surrounds us even amidst all the noise and the chaos, which is the peace of Christ. The kind of peace, a supernatural kind of peace, is always present for the believer. It was present in the catacombs and in every other era when the church looked at an empire straight in the face and said, "You do not get the last word. God does." In other words, the church is reminding us that it is about discernment, not panic, presence, not paralysis. So I personally believe that one of the reasons we live in a culture where fear and anxiety run supreme is because at the root of all of this, most people genuinely don't believe in the spiritual battle. And because of that, they cannot discern what is true or false anymore. We've completely lost touch with divine truth and have put all of our trust in man and man-made institutions, which ironically only leads to more confusion. And since the mainstream media is the main distributor of need to know information today, let us focus on them for just a moment longer. Because at some point in the last decade, something has drastically shifted as it relates to the news. It's not just that the media has a bias. That's clearly always been true. It's that we've also entered into an era where we're all being spoon-fed narratives and not the news as it really is. And this is because media outlets are one heck of a propaganda tool. And to hit this point home, this next clip, you've probably actually seen floating around by now because it literally went viral, which perfectly sums up how careful, literally how careful we have to be when taking in the news as fact rather than what it actually is. And you know what that is? It is a big paid for segment by someone. I can tell you that. It's like literally watching a commercial. So take a look at this next clip and then we will discuss.
Seen that video where it shows local news people? It's local news people all saying like the exact same thing
without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets
story without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Yeah.
This is the scariest.
Well, that's propaganda.
Yeah, no, actually, what we just watched, that is indeed what is really scary to our democracy. When we can watch a clip like that where everybody knows what is going on in newsrooms, and that is coming down from the top from somewhere paying. I worked for the news for many, many years. So, where does truth come from? Is it from these news organizations that are really just bought and paid for segments? If not, then where? Because it's not the news. That's not where truth comes from. And that is the question we must have an answer for today and always for the rest of our lives. The Gospel of John reminds us of what Jesus himself said, that the truth, knowing the truth, will set us free. Anything short of that, we are in bondage. The truth will set us free. God's truth, divine truth. It is one of the most quoted lines in all of Scripture. And I think we, not just as a culture, but as a world, have completely lost the depth and the importance of what Christ was saying here. He was not just talking about honesty. He was making a metaphysical claim that truth is not just a category of information for whoever has that category, whoever bought that category. Truth is a property of reality itself. And ultimately, it is a property of God. Christ said himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And by the way, no one comes to the Father except by me. His words, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is truth, which means that we better know him and we better know his word, what he taught. Jesus is truth, which means also that when a culture abandons objective truth, not just factual accuracy, although we've lost that too, but the actual belief that truth exists and can be known by way of God, the culture isn't just becoming more confused, it's becoming more enslaved. Because the opposite of truth is not just falsehood, it is bondage. A society without real truth to stand on becomes not only possessed in a way, but becomes emotionally unmanageable. When nothing can be agreed upon and we're only fed paid for narratives on a loop, when reality itself becomes negotiable, how can we make well-informed decisions? How do we know what is true, what is not true? How can we trust anything or anyone? How can we properly raise children? How do we know what to do next? It is no wonder our culture is so emotionally unstable and unmanageable right now. And the fact remains that confused or overly propagandized people are much easier to manipulate. And right now, a lot of people are not only confused, they're completely brainwashed by an overconsumption of media and not, sadly, an overconsumption of God's word. And make no mistake, the outrage machine, the media, is fueled by exactly this. It needs us destabilized and reactive, highly emotional, highly emotive, and needs us altogether brainwashed and either thinking the exact same thing or they need to pit us against each other. Either one, they just don't want us in the truth, divine truth. Because a person who is anchored in real truth, God's truth, it is nearly impossible to manipulate that person or for them to get too overly emotive about things in the world in general. The church has been the guardian of truth here on earth, known as the precious deposit of faith for 2,000 years. And we must know that deposit of faith. We must hold on to it, learn it, and relearn it now more than ever. So we stay emotionally grounded and stable during these very, very confusing times, which brings us to another thing. The last thing, a final sort of thing, and that is kind of a glue that can hold us together. The thing we need more than any policy or new law or whatever, any technological advancement, any media talking point or whatever. What we need more than anything is true spiritual discernment. Now, that is a word that gets thrown around a lot in Catholic circles that I think most people don't actually really understand what it means in its fullness. Discernment. What we end up doing is we treat it like a fancy word for making a good decision. But discernment in the classical spiritual sense is something much more serious, and we're lacking it. Spiritual discernment is the capacity to actually tell the difference between spirits, between what is from God and what is not from God, between truth and the false imitation of it. And right now, that capacity, the capacity to actually discern, is intentionally being attacked from every direction. And that's because discernment, in the truest sense of the word, protects us from all evil spirits lurking behind whatever the thing may be. Politics, the news, AI, etc. So what I want us to do now is take a look at our final two clips, and then we're going to discuss. They're very different in nature, but I definitely did want to throw them in tonight's show because they're different. They're good for very different reasons, but I think we should listen to them both. So take a listen to this.
Soul was actually never meant to know the news of the world. Human beings were meant to live in small organic communities of about 150 people. And part of the reason for that is you're just literally not supposed to know about the tragedy that's taking place right now in the Congo. We think that to be a responsible human being, this is one of the internet disciple lies. So I'm not shaming anyone. We've just been mentored into this way of living. We think that to be a responsible human being, you need to know what's happening in Ukraine. You need to know what Trump does. All of it. You need to know about the heartache that's taking place in the African civil wars right now or in Somalia. Folks, that's a lie. Your brain was literally not created for omniscience. You're not meant to know the tragedy of the world. And so learning to reduce your news intake, if you want to reduce anxiety in your children, make their world smaller.
That is so good and so true. Have you ever thought of it like that? We are not created to ingest this much information. And there is a reason, a very diabolical reason, it is being thrown at us in the way that it is today. How many people would honestly say, I am literally addicted to just scrolling on my phone? That is by design. And our soul was never, ever created to take in this kind of information because it absolutely disturbs the soul. Anyway, here's our final video for this show. Take a listen.
If you are afraid, if you are worried, if you are concerned of certain things that have happened in your life and that are happening right now, if you are worried about the future, the unknown, what will happen to me, to my family, to my children, and the attacks that we go through, sometimes those attacks that come from Satan are fearsome. They're very powerful. And when we go through all these different attacks, worries, anxieties, concerns, heavy burdens, problems, issues, we fear a lot. We start having our doubts and our concerns. what will happen to me and to my family. However, the Lord sends us a comforting letter today and says, verse 1, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91 is a letter of comfort sent by God to every frightened, concerned soul. Do not be afraid, he says, for I know everything about you. And I see everything that you've been through and that you are going through and will go through. I know it. I am God. You don't need to tell me. You don't need to explain. But I expect one thing of you. Choose to live in the secret place of the Most High. That's all I'm asking you to do. Just dwell in the secret place of the Most High and leave everything else to me.
That is indeed what God is saying. Abandon yourself. I say it often, abandon yourself to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and leave everything to God. Fear not. I love that. And by the way, I have to do a shameless plug because he brought up Psalm 91, which is the most powerful prayer of protection in the entire Bible. And if you haven't done so, make sure to visit psalm91.com. Anyway, 1 John chapter 4, verse 1 states, Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. That verse was written to a community surrounded by false teachers, confusing signs, and competing claims about what was true. Sound familiar? That was written in biblical times. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 reminds us that, quote, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of the dark underworld, which is to say, the real conflict is not political. It is not economic either. Those are veneers to the actual real problem. But the real conflict is, as we've been saying so often on the Surrendered Life podcast, the real conflict is spiritual. And if we are not oriented toward that reality, the reality that all of this is at its core a spiritual battle, then we are fighting the wrong war with the wrong weapons. And we're only going to get more confused, more anxious, and more disheartened. So what can discernment look like us? What can discernment look like for us today then? In my opinion, for starters, we can start to really slow down before we react. Let's not be highly emotive. Ask yourself often how much you are just taking in news, doom scrolling on social media. Start to limit that. I mean, a lot. The soul was never wired for it, and it's doing great harm. And then when you are watching or reading something, whether it be on TV or the internet, does it draw you closer to God or more towards fear? Does the content you're doom scrolling make you more on fire for the faith, more charitable toward a neighbor, more loving to your family? Or does it bring you farther from the faith and make you feel more contemptuous toward your family and other people? Does the narrative that you're being fed give you peace, or does it hijack it? Real discernment also looks like returning to prayer before we return to another social media timeline. How often are we doing that throughout the day? It looks like going to confession regularly, getting to mass, reading the Bible, praying the rosary. Not so much as magic shields, no, but as actual practices that reorient a soul back to peace, back to discernment, and opens us up to God's grace and hearing his voice. The canonized saints did not navigate chaos by consuming more chaos. They navigated chaos by going deeper into God. St. Teresa of Avila, one of my favorites, was alive during the Protestant Reformation, a moment where Christendom itself was fracturing. She did not write a panicked manifesto. No, she wrote a book called The Interior Castle. A book, by the way, I highly, highly recommend for everyone to read. But notice how she did not get panicked during a time of real severe persecution. She maintained her peace and went inward, making sure that her interior life was strong. And now that is the model. Not because the external world doesn't matter. It does to a certain degree, of course, but because a soul that is not anchored internally to God and his truth cannot do anything useful in the external world anyway. It'll always fail. In short, we must go deeper with God and our knowledge of the truth. We must discern more today than ever, which comes from knowing our faith. And we must funnel all worldly news from a sacramental worldview, full stop. So, my friends, here is where we are. Politics and world events have become a substitute religion for millions and millions and millions of people today. There's no doubt about it. And it is, of course, failing them in real time. We're seeing the effects of this failing, false, political, quote unquote, religion. We're seeing the effects of it at every turn, everywhere in the world. AI is eroding our confidence in what's real, manufacturing a world where the line between truth and imitation is increasingly impossible to find. The media is running a 24/7 fear and propaganda machine that is spiritually exhausting everyone and doing real damage to people's souls. And underneath all of it, the deepest problem is that the majority have lost a shared sense of what objective truth even is. None of this is totally new in the sense of being unprecedented. The church has seen versions of this kind of confusion, certainly, and anxiety before. But what makes this moment in history feel uniquely disorienting is the speed of it. The way the confusion is coming at us from every screen, every hour, every minute, without pause, and on a continuous loop. But here's what I want you to hear before we close. Confused is not the same as lost, unless we allow it to become that. Disoriented is not the same as abandoned. Yes, the world is spiritually unstable right now, but we ourselves, just because the world is spiritually unstable, we ourselves do not have to be spiritually unstable. We have an anchor, and the anchor is the anchor of all truth. And it is there for us to grab onto and to learn. In closing, I want to say this, that I would venture to bet that a lot of you came to this episode today already feeling a bit tired, maybe a little unsettled, anxious, whatever. You for sure didn't need me to tell you that something is wrong, spiritually sick in the world. I know you can feel it for yourself because we're definitely all in this together. Yes, the instability is real. The confusion is real. The fear that gets triggered when you watch the news or read the headlines or think about the world your children are going to inherit, that fear is understandable on a surface level. But there is always good news. And here it is. Fear is not the final word, nor does it have to drive our lives in the least bit. Here's what we know for sure. And we know this, by the way, because 2,000 years of martyrs and mystics and doctors of the church have tested it in conditions far worse than ours. And it held that Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8. Love it. Memorize it. Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So is his word. That fact is not a sentiment. It is indeed a fact. The political landscape that we find ourselves in during our lives will continuously shift. Technology will keep evolving. Empires will rise and they will fall. Media cycles will keep churning and doing what they're paid off to do, but absolutely none of that changes the nature of God. None of that touches the resurrection. None of that invalidates the Eucharist or empties the scriptures or dismantles the church that has survived every empire and every lie that's ever tried to destroy it or the truth. The world is confused, yes, but our Lord Jesus Christ is not. I know that when people hear just trust God, sometimes it sounds like a way of avoiding real life, the real stuff, but it's not. The saints who said and believed this most powerfully, just trust God, were often the ones in the most difficult situations, by the way. They were often the ones that were being martyred. No, the people who went before us, faith and truth intact, never said that the problems were not real. No. What they were saying by saying just trust God is that the problems of the world are not bigger or stronger than Almighty God. And believing that, reminding ourselves of that fact every single day matters, and it makes a big difference in our lives. So, what do we do starting right now? In my humble opinion, well, for starters, we can deliberately choose to limit again how much we consume into our minds and hearts and protect our spiritual ecology, just like we would protect our physical health. We wouldn't eat poison every day and wonder why we're sick, right? So we should not feed our soul with a bunch of fear and propaganda and news and reels and whatever, and then wonder why we always feel unsettled and why we don't have peace. Okay, that's number one. We can also make it a point to return to the sacraments, the vessels of grace. It might sound very obvious to some, but you'd be surprised how many people do not take advantage of the sacraments on a weekly basis. They are there for our protection and our strength, and they're designed by God for especially this kind of environment when we need all the spiritual grace and strength that we can possibly get. And people are literally starving for this right now, for truth and for grace. We do not need more information on the web. We need more peace and more truth, the kind that doesn't evaporate when you open a new computer tab. In addition, we can practice praying for the people that we disagree with. This one is not easy, I know well. And I'm not just saying pray for the ones who are somewhat annoying either. I mean, pray for the ones who represent the thing that most angers you politically, ideologically, and spiritually right now. Truly pray for them. Not because they are right, but because the alternative is to let contempt take up residence in our soul. And contempt is a slow poison that only hurts us and it separates us from God. And to my parents watching, let's talk to our children more honestly. Let's be honest and tell them that yes, the world is very complicated and can feel scary at times, but that the answer isn't to be more engaged with online chat rooms and AI crap, but to be more rooted in the truth of God, the real author and distributor of all truth on earth and in heaven. And let's remind them often that their value is not determined by culture or an algorithm or likes or anything else. Their value is established by God, who made them and called them very good. The world is not going to tell them that. So parents, we must. And this week, do not lose your peace or your joy. That might sound strange after everything we've discussed today, but two things can be true simultaneously. The world can feel chaotic, and at the very same time, we can retain our joy and our peace because the Christian understanding of joy is not the same as the fleeting emotion of happiness. Happiness depends on circumstances. Christian joy does not. Joy is a gift from God that is present regardless of circumstances. Biblical joy is the settled confidence that God is God and that this story has already been resolved on the cross. It's what let the early Christians sing even while they were in prison. It's what let Thomas More laugh on the scaffold. It's what lets ordinary people in ordinary, difficult lives keep showing up with that burning zeal and desire for hunger and goodness and more of God. That's a different kind of strength, a different kind of light. And that's what we're called to. Not performance, not pretending, not bypassing the real grief of a world in trouble, but absolutely refusing to let the confusion of the moment have the last word over the life and the health of your soul. The world is loud because it is spiritually lost. Let that be our cue to go more quiet. go deep in our faith, turn out the noise, go to our true and lasting anchor. That is not retreat, by the way, that is actual resistance. And remember Matthew 24. It reminds us of how Jesus looked at his disciples who were asking about the signs of collapse and chaos. And he said to them, when you see all these things, do not be alarmed. He does not say, do not pay attention. He doesn't say, don't care. He says, do not be alarmed, because alarm is fear, and fear is the opposite of faith. It's what happens when we forget who holds the future. And we know darn well who owns the future. And it's not AI, the globalists, the deep state, or any political figure either. So this week, turn some things on low. Minimize some of the noise so you get clarity. Pray more than you scroll online. Go to mass as often as you can. Read something that feeds your soul instead of agitates your mind. Call someone you love. Tell them you love them. Go outside. Be a human being in the full sense of the word, which means a creature who knows that it is loved by God and doesn't need the approval of an algorithm to prove it. And take confidence in the fact that the church is still here. Our saving boat on rocky seas. She is here and she will always be here. She has buried every civilization that thought it would bury her, and she will bury this state of confusion too. And most important of all, Christ is still and will always be the center of history and the center of our lives if we want that. He is not watching from a distance. He is fully present and alive with us always. And that's why we can always say confidently, Lord, I may not understand all of this, what's going on all the time at lightning speed, but I trust in you. The kind of trust, my friends, is not weakness. That kind of trust is real trust. That kind of trust is the most countercultural, subversive, powerful thing you can do in a world that has forgotten what real truth looks like. Stay anchored, stay faithful, and no matter what, keep praying, keep learning your faith, and keep smiling. The world needs so much more of that. And before we go, I do want to jump live into the chat really quick and just say hi to so many of you who are here turning in every single week and supporting this ministry. I cannot thank you enough. We just are getting started. We have so much to learn, but you have been with us steadfast every step of the way, even since our first show, our very first launch. And I just cannot thank you enough. Your support is showing. We are growing because of you. We are strengthening because of you. And thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. So Shannon Muzica, always so great to see you. Dean Marini, Ann Blackwell, so great to see you. Always. Let me see if I can grab some questions. Julie Beer, sister, I'm so happy that you can join us now in the evenings. I know that early when we were doing the morning meditations, it was really hard for you to join us, but it is so good to see you as well. And a lot of you, I can see we're chatting about all the cloning stuff. Yeah, I know that's really scary and can be really confusing. It's just another thing that we're going to have to contend with, and that's okay. Because if we are anchored in the truth, remember that we are not going to become spiritually disoriented. Yomi R2H, you said I was born religious Jewish, but I am a believer in Jesus for over a year, and I really want to convert to Christianity and get baptized already, but I need someone who can lead me through that. Well, God is definitely going to provide that for you. I can assure you of that. And I am so glad that you are here with us. I will do everything that I can to help you strengthen your faith along the way. That I can promise you. So again, you guys, I just want to thank you so much for all of your support. I cannot say that enough. If you would like to support us, a lot of you are called to support monetarily. And if that is the way that you would love to show support for this ministry, please go to surrenderedlife.com, sign up for Meisha's ministry. That is where we are going to do a lot of really fun teachings and a lot of interesting reading. And also you can donate on the surrenderedlife.com website as well. And if that is not where you're being called right now, or you're not able to donate or join the ministry, if you're at least finding these Christian videos and perspective and information helpful, please help us by hitting the little notification bell so you're always notified when we go live. Hit the like and subscribe button right now if you haven't already. And please also share this video. It really does help the ministry and channel to grow every time people talk about it or share it. So for those of you who do that, I see you. I know that you're doing that. Thank you. And for those of you who haven't yet, we sure would love that support. So thanks again for all of you doing your part. It shows. We feel your love. Thank you so much for making a real difference. And I will see you again very, very soon. God bless you. God keep you. And God protect you. We'll see you next time.